Good morning and welcome to another installment of our OEA MOU Update Q&A. My name is Chaz Garcia and I am a longtime teacher here in Oakland, serving on the bargaining team. Just so you are aware, I was a substitute when I started and taught every grade K 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and served the last 4 years as a PAR coach. And I am very happy to be joined by my partner here, Joey.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joey Notaro. I'm a teacher at Fremont High School, and I teach math and science.
All right. Thanks, Joey. So again, today, our focus is around safety and distance learning. After an update, we're going to take your questions. And if you have a question about the MOU or negotiations, please type it into the YouTube comment section of the live stream. As we receive your questions, we'll do our best to answer them. There will also be other bargaining team members answering questions within the chat. So keep your eyes out in the chat. You may get answered there rather than live. And if we aren't able to give you an answer in the chat or through the live stream, we will work to get you an answer in one of our upcoming updates. So today's live stream will be about 30 minutes, after which the bargaining team will be meeting and looking at the MOU language in preparation for another meeting with the district later this week. With that being said, I'll turn it over to Joey, who will give you an update on safety, distance learning, and also what happened in bargaining yesterday. Joey?
Thank you, Chaz. So yesterday we had built out our full detailed and robust MOU proposal outlining crisis distance learning. Our proposal improved crisis distance learning by trying to address tech distribution and online access, small group work, especially for our students with IEPs, family wellness checks, and improve safety and best practices for special education teachers and educators, counselors, speech and language pathologists, and our most vulnerable students. The district continues to counter, unfortunately, with a thin, underdeveloped program, which focuses more on the instructional minute breakdown and less on quality of instruction. The district also just continues to see our students as dollar signs as we're trying to push for safety. We know we're not ready to go back into the classroom until we know that the conditions are safe for our students in Oakland and for our own members and educators and families. And that's part of why we've made it clear that we are really elaborating on what it means for criteria 1 for near zero incidents and safety.
Along those lines, the district has also kind of fluctuated our bargaining timeline this week. We shared with you all our plans to bargain, and they shifted the days. We were hoping to bargain today, actually, and instead we ended up bargaining yesterday. We'll be returning to the table later this week, but I just want to remind everyone out there that this whole process is very fluid, and we'll do our best to keep you updated with changes, but they happen in the moment, and we are looking forward to getting back to the table and having a real proposal that addresses the concerns that Joey raised about previously. All right, Joey.
All right, let's go to some of your questions now. So Chaz, Alexis Ferrari wants to know, I know no one has a crystal ball, but how much closer are we getting in bargaining? What is the likelihood that this will extend beyond the start date of school or even the start date for teachers?
We are very hopeful that we actually will reach an agreement long before the start date of school. We have had some movement. The district has moved. We haven't moved much, but we are holding true to the safety demands that will protect the students, staff, and community. And the district is listening, and they are interested in reaching an agreement. They have made some movement, but they need to move a bit more, quite a bit more, actually. So I am hopeful, and I feel like we'll have a better kind of idea of how far we are at the end of this week, because there's some movement around proposals that should be happening this week. All right, Joey. I want to give a shout out to Stephen Butler because he posted a question in the chat before we started. So thank you, Stephen, for being engaged and being here with us. All right, and he actually has a question, which is, we have not been granted a waiver in terms of IEPs, but we're putting forward a plan that will keep students safe. Oh, never mind, that's somebody's answer. Okay, so Stephen Butler, glad Bethany got to your answer. Joey, back to you with the next question.
Sure. So we have a question here from Madison Lanning. If we start August 10th, will all of my students already have access to a computer and Wi-Fi? Thinking about 6th and 9th graders specifically who are moving school sites.
So the plan is that, yes, they will be distributed, and the specifics of that would still need to be ironed out. But again, going back to the safety, we're holding that as the priority and not wanting to make any requirements of anybody to show up and distribute materials. There were some schools that figured out ways in which materials could be distributed last year in the spring, which potentially could be helpful.
Can I add to that a little bit, Chaz?
Yes, please do.
Yeah, I also want to point out that in our conversations yesterday with the district, we've continued to hold the proposal that we want the first 2 weeks to really be part of students getting access to that tech and parents having the training and the skills that they need, just like their kids might need, to be able to support them. Our proposal has continued to hold that we want those 2 weeks to be for teacher prep, and that the district and central staff personnel should really be the ones who are focused on making sure that students, parents, and staff have access to all the tech that they need. The district is sort of holding that they want us to be able to start teaching directly, and it's our position that it's going to be very hard for us to do that kind of teaching. As I think it was Madison Lanning pointed out, would be a little bit challenging, especially for students who are shifting to the higher grade in the next school site. So we want to make sure there's a good transition period there that sets up teachers, students, and families for success.
Thanks, Joey. We have a question from Dorit, and she wants to know if the governor's speech helped our bargaining position.
Excellent question, Dorit. So I think that one of the things that it did help us do is it grounded some of the explanation of what schools can and cannot do about reopening in very specific metrics. What we did with this, as part of our bargaining team, was we looked at how are those metrics really relevant to Oakland. So we know that Oakland is not Pleasanton. We know that Oakland is not the larger Alameda County. And we also know that the rates of COVID-19 cases are way higher in Oakland than they are in other parts of the county. So even though Alameda County is still on the watch list for the state, the only thing that we really want to make sure is that Oakland is fully represented when we decide whether it's safe to reopen or not. So our new Criteria 1 safety proposal looks at zip code by zip code data to make sure that the same kind of criteria that the state and the county are tracking are actually okay in every neighborhood in Oakland before we return to any form of in-person instruction so that it's safe for everybody. Chaz, do you have anything to add to that?
No, that you covered everything. That was awesome. I see here a question by Rachel, and she's asking if we're pushing to get non-tech supply kits for lab classes, CTE classes, art classes, etc. And just noting that many students didn't have consistent access to paper pencils, and let alone color pencils, etc.
Thanks for that, Chaz. I will say that our proposal does continue to push the district to distribute supplies, and there is a whole separate appendix that's just for our visual and performing arts teachers and educators to make sure that all the music and art supplies that they need are distributed to students in a way that's as safe as possible for everyone, but that ensures that students have the highest quality crisis distance learning education. Regarding just regular school supplies, we also have that in our proposal, and we're pushing the district hard on it because we know that it's not just a matter of tech, but students actually having access to the kinds of manipulatives and the regular school supplies they would normally use in class is really important and crucial to make sure that we stay safe, there's not as much pressure to go in person, and that families also feel supported in crisis distance learning during this time. Chaz, I have a question for you. This is from Jason Gilbertson. If Alameda saw no new cases for 14 days, do we go back to school on day 15, or do we start getting organized to do a few days, I'm sorry, or do we start getting organized to do so a few days or a week later?
Thank you for that question, Jason. And it's a great one. I think what we are focusing on right now is the distance piece, right? And really solidifying our safety criteria with the district and are fleshing out what it would look like once any in-person instruction occurred. We haven't quantified exactly what that would be, but we would absolutely provide prep time for teachers, because we know that going back into the classroom to do in-person instruction would require a shift. And also, like, if you're able to use your actual classroom materials to teach, it's very different from teaching at home through technology. And so we would make sure that the teachers have the time, and we will be forthcoming with what amount of time. I don't know, Joey, if you'd like to add to that.
No, I think that's great, Chaz. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, we have a question, and I know there's a lot of questions about training and family tech support, because so many of our teachers spent countless hours providing tech support while simultaneously trying to learn how to navigate the technology. And so I believe it's Kelly McBride asked about how would we provide family tech support? Would that be teachers' role to do so?
Yeah, so I think I answered that kind of in an earlier question. So we're trying to make sure that we hold the line that it's not the responsibility of teachers or other educators. We're there to teach, we're there to provide support services. And of course, we recognize we're gonna need to do some of that with our families, but getting students and families set up to do that for what might be the whole semester, we really wanna make sure that that's something that the district is doing as part of their larger tech distribution. So our goal, again, as part of our proposal, is those first 2 weeks, the district is really responsible for making sure that unit members have the time to prep and to prepare their classes and to review their IEPs and whatever it is in their specific role that they have to do in order to be successful for the rest of the year, for as long as crisis distance learning may last as the conditions are unsafe, and that the district is really the one responsible for providing those trainings and making sure that students, parents, and staff have access to them.
And to that point, Joey, I will say the district seems to recognize that we can't carry that load, but their current idea is that the parents engage in online training to learn online systems, so that we don't think that's the effective way to go. So we'll have to kind of brainstorm some ideas to help them you have one idea, right? It shouldn't be the teachers holding that, but now let's work on how you're going to deliver this for our parents. We have, you want to throw another question my way?
Sure. From VS Swim, is the decision on mini-mesters final?
All right. I am going to say a little bit about mini-mesters and then give it back to Joey, since he's our high school teacher, but it is not. That is a very hot topic I think around the district, in terms of you feel strongly one way or another, and has been discussed deeply on the bargaining team. It is something that the district would like to move towards. We have some equity concerns. They feel it addresses equity. I'm going to let Joey elaborate.
Yeah, thank you, Chaz. Our current proposal allows for sites and their faculty council specifically to have the flexibility to democratically decide whether a mini-mester is the type of model that they would choose to move to. We recognize that there are some strengths of the mini-mester, but there are also many teachers that feel strongly that it does not suit the needs of what their particular students have. So this includes some of our visual and performing arts teachers. It includes some of our AP students and dual enrollment students for community colleges. And so we recognize there are challenges, and each site, it would be in the best interest of the site, knowing the contingencies there, whether to make that decision. And we're really pushing that it's something that the faculty councils, which is part of our contractual language, have the ability to decide, and not just something that's decided exclusively by the site administrator.
Thanks, Joey. I see a question by Vincent. And he's asking if substitutes will work for per diem, have worked for per diem substitutes. And being a former substitute, I felt I'll go ahead and take this one. Yes, subs are unit members, and we are also have a proposal for them. And it was informed by the substitute caucus, and we do have a representative for subs, Rosinda Thomas, on our team. And that language is in our MOU. And as you know, as we negotiate, language evolves, so it may not be exactly what was put out. We will be talking about when to share a latest update of where we are with language, but rest assured that subs are included. All right, I see a question here, Joey, from Jay Crum. When will the district have hotspot infrastructure in place? I have parents needing free reduced internet, but we have no news to share regarding internet.
Thank you, Chaz. I don't think we can speak specifically to what the district's going to do. I know that this is something we're pushing hard, right? We recognize that for crisis distance learning to work for our members, for educators, and for students, that they have to have access to internet. And so we're trying to really apply pressure on the district to make sure that's something that happens, because we don't know how long it's not going to be safe for students and staff to be able to go back in person into the classroom. What I will add to that is we're working on finalizing our proposal on some common good language to try and make it something that the district can be able to push towards in conjunction with other parts of the city, right? Other entities, because we recognize that this is a citywide problem, and it's most certainly affects our students in crisis distance learning, but it also affects everyone in the city who doesn't have access to internet in a time when we are living through a pandemic and people have to physically distance and they have to work from home in order to maintain their safety and survive. This is a question of life and death, and we don't take it lightly. So it's really important to us that this is not just an education equity issue, but it's a human life issue. Like, it's important for us that that's something that we try to get into our MOU camp. Chaz, question from Katie Toombs. How does the district propose that hybrid learning work, teaching in person and at home at the same time? How does the MOU define that?
Thank you for that question, Katie. We currently are focusing on distance because we know that that's how we'll be getting our school year. And we also know a lot of you out there have anxiety around what that will look like. So that has been the primary focus. And we plan on creating a committee that has members from OEA working with the district to flesh out what a workable schedule would be. Internally, we looked at some variations, and we know that to have small groups and reach the children the way that we would like to at secondary is easier in terms of scheduling, but when you get into elementary, it becomes problematic in terms of length of the day. And so there needs to be some creative thinking. And I know Joey was involved in those conversations. So would you like to add anything, Joey, around the thinking and also the future planning?
Thank you, Chaz. So we have talked a little bit about it. We've really shifted the focus to making sure crisis distance learning is improved and safe. And to be really blunt with you about it, I don't think we've really thought through fully in our proposal yet around what hybrid learning would look like, because we recognize it would be really, really challenging as we try to transition back in, with teachers having to both carry some version of in-person and distance learning instruction. So that's why we're focusing extremely hard on safety and extremely hard on making sure that crisis distance learning is better for kids and for teachers. We're definitely going to make sure that as we've tried to flesh out language about what the transition to a hybrid model or any form of in-person looks like, that it's a workload that's sustainable for teachers and other educators, and that it's not causing more problems than it like solves. So we're trying to address it, but it's something that we haven't worked out all the details on yet, just recognizing it's something we have to figure out as it becomes safer to go back into the classroom. All right, Chaz. What is OUSD's, this is from VBorn28, what is OUSD's plan for training families who are not technologically savvy and do not participate in online events to use online platforms?
Thank you, Joey, for that. Joey spoke to this a little earlier on, and currently the district, their plan involves using tech to support training families who are not technologically savvy. And I'm sure you can see the problem with that. So that is something which we will counter and provide some input and perhaps have some discussion around their thinking with that and how that may miss the very people that they're intending to capture. So I think ultimately their plan needs some shifting. But I'll say what I said earlier, which is it is very positive they realize that that should not fall upon the classroom teacher, because some of us are super technologically savvy, others aren't. But apart from that, we have many other aspects to our duties that involve, teaching. So we don't have the time to do tech support as well. And Joey, I have a question for you from Nora. She wants to know how much coordination there's been between teachers' unions in the area.
Thanks for the question, Nora. So we're aware of the bargaining that's going on in other districts. There are definitely ongoing meetings of what's called the California Alliance for Community Schools, which involves several of the locals throughout the state. And we're talking about what bargaining looks like across the state and similar challenges, right? And this is something that's occurring in many different ways, just to try and make sure that we're comparing notes and just seeing like what kinds of challenges are happening in different districts and how are we trying to address them. So there's definitely conversation. We're going to maintain our focus on Oakland and making sure that we are staying strong here, because it's not going to be the same across the state. It's certainly not even going to be the same across the Bay. Chaz, do you have more to add to that?
Yeah. In addition to that, we have, Keith specifically usually attends the meeting every Wednesday with Al Costa, which is consists of the local districts here. And so the presidents get together and have conversations around any, from the Center for Organizing and Bargaining, any legislation that has come that is pertinent to bargaining, and also to discuss what's happening at their tables. So we are definitely focused in Oakland, but we definitely have been in conversation locally and statewide, so that we can be also hearing and incorporating any ideas that they bring forth, which could be helpful in terms of how we move forward in bargaining. And let's see. So I have a question here from Jason, and he wants to know if there's any update in regards to special education. Is the district still talking about hiring outside agencies? And is SPED still being dangerously talked about returning in phase 1?
Thank you, Chaz. I'm going to definitely ask for your support on this one, but from my memory of yesterday and our conversations from the district, we're still holding the line that if it's not safe for some members to return, for some educators and students to return, it's not safe for our special educators and our special ed students to return. From what I recall in our conversation, we don't believe that our SPED positions should be outsourced. Those are our members, those are our educators, and they're the people who are going to stick around for the long term to support our students in the community. I'm kind of forgetting the second half of the question, Chaz. Can you help me out?
Sure. Let's see. The hiring outside agencies you touched upon, and also entering in phase 1. So you, Joey, covered it. And just to reiterate, if we have not met criteria 1 and 2, no matter what your position title is, it is our position that you should not be made to go into the building to perform services, because we're saying it's not safe. And so your safety and your life is more important than anything. And we definitely do not support outsourcing. The district is saying that we are behind, so they need to hire these people. And those conversations are continuing to be had, but that's the latest there.
Chaz, I got a question here from Travlin Langendorf. So are we threatening work actions or strike? I'm feeling stressed about this.
That's understandable. It's a stressful time overall. I think where we are is in a bargaining process, and as part of a labor union, we always have work action that is a possibility. None of that would ever happen without approval and actually overwhelming approval and request of our members. So I know sometimes people have thought in the past, I heard we're going on strike. And this is years past, and I would always say, no, if we were going on strike, there would be this long process, there would be a vote, you would have say, so it's nothing that would happen, like if we even ever got there, that at this time or any time, that wouldn't involve member engagement and also a membership vote. So right now, all our energy is going into settling an MOU that protects members' safety, first and foremost. And as I said, I am hopeful that we will be able to get some movement towards that later this week. Let's see here. Anything you want to add, Joey?
No, I think you covered it perfectly, Chess.
We have a question here from Hey Baby. And this one is around tech helpers, and we covered that earlier, so I'm hoping that Hey Baby got the answer they needed, as we will be shifting those responsibilities. Joey, do you have another question over there for me?
Yeah, so Tiffany Theo writes, when school starts, will teachers be able to use their classrooms to teach in rather than teach from home?
That's a great question. So when school starts on the date, which is what, August 10th, I think, I can't remember. All the dates float in my head right now, but whatever day is our first day of instruction, if we have not met criteria 1 and 2, we will not be in the building because we are saying it's not safe. So we want to make sure that nobody is required to be in the building. Some of you may want to be in the building. Our concern is that if anybody is required to be in the building, we are potentially putting the lives of our staff and our community members at risk, knowing, going back to Joey talking about the high rates of COVID that we have here in Oakland, it would be irresponsible of us to put members in a position where being in the classroom happens before criteria 1 and 2 are met. Joey, anything you want to add?
No, I think that's great. I think though, Chaz, we're running short on time. So I want to just reiterate, as Chaz said earlier, we're going to continue our talks with the district later this week. In the meantime, if you haven't already, we really encourage OEA members to review the draft MOU proposal. Of course, that proposal is continuing to change as we bargain with the district. So there are many things that hopefully these live streams that we can report in real time explain a little bit better on how the proposal has either evolved or the areas in which we are fighting hard to make sure that we are getting the district to move, because it's a matter of safety. And like I said earlier, it's a matter of life and death for some of us, for all of us. So if you need to, please fill out the feedback form so that we can look at other common questions and concerns. Thank you to those who've responded. And one last thing, as we say every time, we really want to make clear that anything that OUSD announces is not final. All conditions under which we start the school year have to be negotiated, and those negotiations are ongoing. Chaz?
Thank you, Joey. Yeah, no, thank you everybody for being here. And I just would like to say your bargaining team is listening. We try to respond as much as we can to your questions. And I ask just to have grace. You have a great group of people, 21 of us, who are putting in long hours, not always bargaining, but doing work. on your behalf. And we understand the pressures that you're feeling. We're feeling them too, but we're going to make sure we do right by everybody and make sure we get the MOU that is the best MOU we can get for our members, community, and our students. So thank you for being here, and